Hey, Algebra 2. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get into section 5.5b. Here we're going to still continue our conversation about dividing polynomials, so polynomial division. But now we're going to go ahead and cover a new technique for dividing polynomials, and that technique is called synthetic division. Okay? All right, our objectives are to learn the technique of synthetic division. So how do we do it? What exactly is involved in it? When are we allowed to use it, etc. A few more details about it, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and use the technique to divide two polynomials by each other. And then we're gonna use synthetic division to fully factor a polynomial, a polynomial given a factor or a zero. So sometimes when we factor, we're not able to, or when we try to factor, say, we had a few examples last time, x cubed plus 6x squared minus 7x plus 2. Normally we would say, oh, 4 terms, let's try factor by grouping. But if you see that, or if you look at the coefficients, and you try to do factor by grouping, you're gonna see that you won't be able to complete the process. And then other times we deal with, like, say, x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 10x squared plus 11x minus 1. That's not something we can factor by grouping because now we have more than 4 terms, and we get into a 5th degree, we have potential for having 6 terms, etc., etc. So we need new methods to help us completely factor polynomials in order to find some x-intercepts, okay? So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and see how this synthetic division works, okay? So it's a completely new thing for most of us, okay? So if you need to rewatch, say, like this first example, just to get the ropes, then feel free to do so, okay? Just kind of, warning you a little bit now. It is kind of, at first, like, what's going on here? But I think you'll learn to appreciate it, okay? So we're going to go ahead and divide x cubed plus 4x squared minus x minus 1 by x plus 3. Okay, so just kind of pay attention to the setup first, and then we'll kind of answer some questions about it. So notice my dividend. So remember, this is my dividend, and this is my divisor. Okay, so my dividend, what's going to happen is I'm going to take the coefficients. So the coefficient on x cubed is 1. Coefficient on x squared is 4. Coefficient on x is -1. And the coefficient on my constant term, well, my constant term is -1. Okay, so I'm just going to space them out like this in a line, knowing that if I had a missing term, I would use a placeholder of 0. So for instance, if I was missing the x term, if there was no x term, then here I would have put a 0. Okay, so always pay attention to any missing terms. Use placeholders whenever you need them. Okay, so here are my coefficients of my dividend. Now I'm going to go ahead and over here on the left, I'm going to create like a little half box. So kind of like a little shelf. And then here on my shelf, I'm going to ask myself, what makes my divisor 0? In this case, well, what do I have to plug into x to make my divisor 0? -3. So that's the question you really ask, but you can also think about what's the opposite sign of my constant term. Here, since it's +3, I'm going to use -3. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a horizontal line. I'm going to give myself enough space below my coefficients because I'm going to write more coefficients underneath, more numbers. Okay, already kind of wacky because you're just like, what are you having me do, Mr. G? Don't worry, it's all going to work out, okay? So let's go ahead and now do the process of synthetic division. Okay, rule number 1, we're always going to bring down our first coefficient. So bring down this one. Okay, now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna tell our computer to leave us alone because we know that we're running out of disk space. Thank you. So what we're first gonna do actually is we're gonna take -3, or the number on our shelf, and we're gonna do -3 times 1. So let me draw an arrow. -3 times 1, so times multiplication. And what is that going to give us? That's going to give us -3. So the result of that, let's put this right here underneath our 4. Okay, -3 times 1, that's -3. Now, downwards, we're going to go ahead and add. So 4 plus -3, so add these two numbers together. What are we going to get? 4 plus -3 is +1. Okay, so that's kind of the first iteration, the first step. I took -3, multiplied by 1, and I got -3. And then I did 4 plus -3, which is +1. Okay, we repeat that process with the new number we got. -3 times 1, that's going to be -3 again. So we bring this -3 here. And then we add downwards. -1 plus -3, what is that? -4. Okay, one more time, we're going to do it until we get to the very end. -3, it's going to get a little messy with all these arrows, but bear with me. -3 times -4, that's going to be +12. And then one last time we add downwards. -1 plus 12, that's going to be +11. Okay, you are finished when you have the same number of coefficients that you started with down here below the horizontal line that you drew. Okay? All right, now here's the question of the hour. Oh, sorry, I forgot this arrow. Here's the question of the hour. What on earth did I just do? what is any of this that I'm looking at, right? Well, here what we did in a kind of a faster way is we pretty much just did x plus 3 divided into x cubed plus 4x squared minus x minus 1. Okay, we just did this process and I can kind of prove it to you a little bit to kind of show you where each of these numbers are falling through. So bear with me as we kind of do this long division really quick because we remember how to do it from yesterday. How many times does x go into 4x squared? That would be, oh, why did I skip all the way to a middle term? I apologize. How many times does x go into x cubed? That's going to be x squared, right? Because x times x squared gives me x cubed. Then I'm going to subtract off x squared multiplied into this. So that's going to be x cubed plus 3x squared. Okay, when you do that, you end up with this goes away. X squared times 3, that's, or sorry, 4x squared minus 3x squared, that's x squared. Bring down the minus x. How many times does x go into x squared? What times x gives me x squared? That is plus x. And then I multiply that through and subtract it out. So x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x plus 3x. And then these cancel out. Negative x minus 3x is negative 4x. Bring down the last term, the -1. How many times does x go into negative 4x? That's going to be -4 times. So -4, sorry, kind of got to squish it in a little bit. Then I multiply it through, so minus -4x minus 12, because we're multiplying that -4 through to each of these terms in our divisor. And when you subtract that out, you get, so -4x minus -4x, those cross out, those simplify each other out, sorry. -1 minus -12, that's -1 plus 12, we get 11. Oh, crap. Oh, wow. Oh, do you see some kind of similarities here? Look at the coefficients of our quotient and look at these numbers we ended up with down here. So this right here, these numbers are the coefficients of our quotient. And this 11, that's our remainder. Okay? So now we kind of see where all these numbers come from and where our answer is, where the answer is hidden. So let me erase this long division part and just kind of write out what each of these parts represents, okay? So now we're gonna just dissect this monstrosity, this thing we just did, and kind of go ahead and tell you where each of these things are coming from. Okay, so we already decided, or we already found out that, so first of all, let's kind of do some of the preliminaries. So all this right here, So these, the one for negative one, what were those? Those are the coefficients of the, which one? The dividend. So the dividend. Okay. What was this -3 coming from? This is the constant term of the divisor, right? Because our divisor, the constant term was 3. So constant, I'm going to abbreviate it as constant term of divisor, but what? But it's the opposite sign. But change sign, right? So since it was +3, I'm using -3 instead. Oop, let me rewrite that. But change sign. Okay. And then now let's identify the results. So the answer, this is the result. Okay, everything that is below the horizontal bar is your result. And what exactly is the result? This is coefficients of the quotient. So the answer, right? Because the quotient is the result. The quotient is the result of a division problem. That's the answer. And then what is this 11? This 11 is the remainder. Okay, so when you get a 0 there, that means that x plus 3 went into that evenly, but there it's not 0, so it doesn't go into it evenly. Okay, and one important thing to note is remember our quotient was x squared plus x minus 4. So notice that here, there's only 3 terms that apply, and the last term is the remainder. So you're always going to have one less coefficient for the quotient than you do up here, which means that this is always degree of quotient is always 1 less than degree of the dividend. Okay, and that's true here, right? Because in our quotient, we have a quadratic. In our dividend, we have a cubic, a third degree. Okay, so hopefully you're kind of seeing where all of this is coming, where kind of all this falls into place. So at the end of the day, our answer is x squared. So if it helps, x squared, x constant, and we can do the same thing up here. This is x cubed, x squared, x constant. Okay, our answer is x squared plus x minus 4. And then do you remember how to report that remainder? It's the remainder over the divisor, so x plus 3. And there's your answer. Okay, now it took us a while to kind of identify each part, but if you remember just the part where we're doing all these calculations, it was so much quicker than doing the long division. Okay, so of course, I don't expect you to be a synthetic division master now. Let's do another example to kind of solidify all these pieces, like just to see kind of where all of this stuff fits in a fresh new example without all this writing on there. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, example 2. All right, we're dividing x to the 4th plus 4x cubed plus 16x minus 35. We're taking that and dividing it by x minus 2. Okay, so let's set everything up the same way. Let's take our coefficients and line them up horizontally. So 1, 4. Notice that I'm missing an x squared term, so I need a placeholder. I need to put a 0 for the missing x squared term. 16 and negative 35. Okay, I got my horizontal line of coefficients for my dividend. Remember, this is the dividend. I'm going to keep doing it until you are confident that you can identify the dividend, the divisor, and the quotient, okay? And then we make our little shelf. And then we put our elf in the shelf. I don't know if anybody knows that reference. I don't know if that's of your age, but we'll see. We're gonna put on the shelf, what are we gonna put? Not the elf, but the opposite of the constant term of our divisor. So that's 2, positive. Okay, so this is a positive 2, but we're not gonna have the positive there because it's implied. Okay, and then let's draw our horizontal line. Okay, whatever falls below our horizontal line will be our answer. Okay, so do you remember what the first step was? What do we do first? We go ahead and we take our leading coefficient, the first coefficient, and we bring that down. So bring down the 1. It won't always be a 1, so no matter what number it is, you just bring it down, okay? So now let's remember the process. We took the 2, multiplied it into 1. Okay, multiplication here. What do we get? 2. Okay, and then what did we do? We went ahead and we took 4 plus 2, so we added downwards. That's going to give us 6. Okay, and repeat. 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, and then add downward. What's 0 plus 12? Good old 12. Repeat. 2 times 12 is 24. Add downwards. So what's 16 plus 24? That's going to be, 40. I almost said 30. 40. One last time. 2 times 40, that's going to be 80. Add downward. 80 plus negative 35, that's going to be a positive 45. Right? Yes. Okay, and we're done. Okay, look how fast that was. All right, so what is our answer? Well, remember, go based off of what you start with. So this is our x to the 4th term. This is our x cubed term. This is our x squared term. X constant. In the quotient, it's reduced by 1. So we start with x cubed, x squared, x constant, and then this is our remainder. Okay, so what is our answer? That's x cubed plus 6x squared plus 12x plus 40. Then report the remainder, that's 45 over x minus 2. Okay, now you kind of see how that's a little bit faster than if I did this by long division. And it's a lot more efficient, and there's kind of less, with long division, I would have gone down here, and then I would have had to keep track of subtracting things and redistributing, etc. In my opinion, this is a little bit quicker and a little more efficient. Now, some of you might be sitting here thinking, this is too crazy. Go ahead and keep trying it, especially when we do our practice set. Once you finish the practice set with this, then I want you to make the decision. Do you prefer this method or do you prefer long division? Okay, but I don't want you to make that decision until you've practiced it a little bit, okay? Go ahead and meet me in the next video and we'll talk a little bit more about this synthetic division method, okay?